Welcome to Black Women's Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Rahman, and I am a board certified OB/GYN. Before we dive in, if you want to keep these unfiltered conversations coming straight to you, make sure to subscribe to my email list at drrahman.com. That's where we'll stay connected. The following is a true story. Pregnant and privileged. She went into labor and her baby almost died. Now, thankfully, the baby survives, but now this mom is concerned and she has questions. The main method used to assess the well-being of her baby, your baby, when you're in labor, is the external fetal monitor. That's those gadgets that have belts that are placed around your abdomen during labor to monitor, one, the frequency of your contractions, and two, your baby's heart rate. Electronic fetal monitoring is accepted by most doctors and most hospitals as the standard of care, and it has been used for decades. However, external fetal monitoring has never been well studied. It's never shown that it could decrease the incidence of cerebral palsy and actually is of questionable usefulness. Given her experience and given this information, she felt that there was a need, and identifying a need, she becomes determined to find a better way. She works for a company which produces obstetrical monitoring devices. She has access. She petitions her company. She gets financial backing. All systems go. But it failed. Despite strong internal commitment, despite promising data, she was unable to bring this to market, unable for widespread adoption. And she wrote about her experience and her assessment of the systemic barriers which make the success of women's health startups difficult, if not impossible. This may be surprising to some because we are hearing more and more that women's health has become an important health issue for many, and that more venture capital funding is being directed to women's health. And that's good because McKinsey report, it was stated that about 2%, only 2% of venture capital funding went to women-led companies. And only 0.1% went to companies that were led by Black or Hispanic women. Venture capital funding for maternal health has been historically low. Back to her story. This mother worked for a company which produced obstetrical monitoring devices. She worked in that division. In fact, at some point, she led the division and she petitioned the company to innovate and to develop a better solution. She identified 3 reasons, and she wrote about this, 3 reasons for the failure of her product to get to market or failure of her product to have widespread adoption. And she believes that the same reasons that she encountered are reasons why there are a higher rate of failure of female health innovations. She gave three reasons. Number one, low reimbursement. Obstetrical departments throughout the country tend to be loss leaders within their hospitals. Reimbursement for total obstetrical care is low. The author, the woman who did these studies, states that she spoke with a physician from Alabama who said that Medicaid paid $1,000 for 9 months of prenatal care, labor and delivery, and postpartum care, while paying $1,600 for a 1 hour joint replacement. Sadly, when we're talking about maternity care, women's health care, there often is no money to be made. Number two, regulatory burdens, too many hurdles that an innovator has to jump over. Pregnancy is considered a protected class, which limits and restricts what you can do and how you can do it. Recently, however, there's been a shift in that there has been an increasing effort to include pregnant women in clinical trials. This particular woman thought that the regulations superimposed on innovators were well intended, but also paternalistic. She stated that women are clearly capable of making informed decisions. And this is an interesting consideration. I too believe that women are capable of making informed decisions, but I also believe that women should remain, pregnant women should remain a protected class, and that regulatory hurdles should exist because we as a country have a history of not treating all persons equally. New innovations, even such as electronic fetal monitoring in the past, don't necessarily get adequate study. And there can be long-term negative impacts on recommended medical treatment. So as we move forward, let us not forget the thalidomide and the outcomes, the bad outcomes associated with the thalidomide use. So there does need to be a careful assessment of benefits and risk. And clearly, when we're talking about pregnant women, the benefits have to exceed any possible risks. That being said, I can see how regulations can be onerous to an innovator, and this needs to be addressed at the beginning of any product development. Number three, no infrastructure or support for innovation. This particular woman mentioned that there were no pre-existing supply chains. There was no one or no service for technical support for staff, no maintenance programs, no staff training. The responsibility of all of these very important items became the responsibility of the innovator, which was an overwhelming responsibility. That, coupled with staff and physicians being concerned about medical liability, makes the introduction of anything new and novel difficult. And sadly, she stated that her experience wasn't a singular experience. She went on to interview others, including inventors and entrepreneurs and industry experts and across the board, there seemed to be a consensus that when talking about women's health startups, there's what is called a growth stage cliff, meaning that after the need has been identified and after the market research and the idea has been validated, and after the early stage funding, where we're seeing an increase in early stage funding, and we get into growth so that there can be widespread adoption, that's when companies struggle to take it to scale due to the three mentioned systemic barriers, making it impossible, essentially impossible, to create a sustainable model. Interestingly, this mom, this innovator, thought that we failed as a society in general, that we fail to discuss childbirth and its possible complications, preferring to consider childbirth as natural. And as a result, we fail to demand improvement or innovations, unlike the way we do for adults that are dealing with or dying from preventable diseases. I find that an interesting statement in the face of our increasing maternal mortality rates and the significant racial maternal mortality disparity. I am disappointed. I don't know. I'm struggling for the right word. But to read the opinion that not much attention is being paid to maternal health because it's natural is an odd statement for me. What does it say about us if this is true and we don't see maternal mortality as a systemic problem? Well, I agree that we need to address the structural barriers in women's health, including the regulatory hurdles and the low reimbursement, with careful consideration and assessment of any proposed pregnancy model of care. Lastly, I agree that our children are worth the effort and that we cannot and should not wait another generation for women's health to be more than just a trending movement. This was a fascinating and insightful article written by Veronica Adamson. It was published online and posted on LinkedIn. I will share the link for your review. Until the next time, be well. If you found this valuable, share it with one friend and join my email community at drrahman.com. That's where I keep it real. No censorship, no noise.